The master's thesis, there are basically two methods that people use to write a thesis. One of them can just be the traditional, the traditional type of thesis, and also the manuscript based kind of thesis. Hello, my name is Peter Esesele. Welcome to my channel. Now, the volume of your thesis is going to be dependent on the kind of research that you are doing. For course-based students, they do like a 6 months project towards the end of their masters, and then they kind of write a report. Is not necessarily called a complete thesis, just like a report to show like a summary of the work that they did in those 6 months. And then for core master student that has always been in research from the beginning that they started, so they're the one that really have to write a complete and nice and well structured thesis. So how do they go about it? So the traditional type of of thesis, of master's thesis, is where you just have your your introduction, your research questions and objectives, then you have your materials and method, your result, and your discussion. So that is like a normal your bibliography. That is like kind of a normal traditional way of writing the thesis. If you are writing a manuscript based thesis, especially people that have maybe in your masters you had two different kinds of projects. For example, I wrote a manuscript based thesis. So basically what it means is that if you have two separate projects, you're going to approach it the way you will have a manuscript. So which means you're going to have a general introduction for your thesis, and then you have your maybe the second paragraph that talks about your rationale, your hypothesis, and your objective. And your chapter 3 is going to be the same way you are going to write your manuscript. So chapter 3 will have its own introduction, to have its own materials and method, results, and discussion. And then chapter 4 is now going to be the second project that you worked on. So that one will have its own introduction, materials and method, results, and discussion. And then the 5th chapter is going to be overall discussion, kind of looking at everything together. So it depends on your work, right? Depends on how your work. If it's something you can write in a traditional manuscript, is format is fine. If you had a chance to publish your paper, you want to just write it in a manuscript form, is also fine. So you need to have that conversation with your professors to see what kind of manuscript is going to be the best for you. Actually, both of them are accepted, depends on the work that you did. For the introduction part of it, when you start your program, these are readings that you start to do, right? Just understanding basic concepts regarding your thesis, some ideas, and as you're reading, you're writing. You don't have to wait till you finish all your project to start working on your introduction. Start writing, as you're doing experiment, you're reading, start populating that introduction, and just be stocking them there. You're going to reorganize them, reformat them in a way that is going to form a sequential story. Because when you already have these papers that are core part of your introduction, when you now want to combine all of the introduction together in a story format, it's going to then make sense for you at that particular point in time. So as you're reading, you are writing, you are putting some notes down, and then the easiest part to write, of course, is your materials and method, because that is what you did, all of the materials you used for your research, all the methods that you use. So you can write that at any time. It's fairly easy. That's the easiest part of thesis to write. And then so when you've had your result section, depends on when you were doing your experiment, the story might not always end up the way you planned it to be. So when you've seen the result, then you have to look for a way to modify your introduction in such a way that it will tell the story it will point to the story that you're about to talk in your results section. Okay, so your results section is basically you've had all your results, you've analyzed the data, and then you've plotted your graph, you've run all of the statistical analysis, so you know what is significant, what is not significant, you know. So I would say normally what I do is all of the graphs that you want to put in your results section, you know, just, you know, put it in like a cardboard and say, okay, which of them comes first. It doesn't mean the experiment you did first is the one that is going to come first in your result. It depends on the order that you want to tell your story. Sometimes it can be the experiment you even did last that is going to be the first thing you're going to say to bring forth in the result, to say, okay, after this we did this, after this we did this, because there was an increase in this, we did a confirmatory analysis, and then we did this particular experiment. So that way your result is sequential. You finalized all your graph. You know, if you, depends on, there are some people, even though the result wasn't significant, you know, some of them can move it to the supplementary. It depends on how relevant, you know, it is. There are some experiments that you don't see anything significant and it's very surprising. It's something interesting as well, that you thought there was going to be difference and there was no difference. So other people will be aware that, you know, in this kind of model or this kind of treatment, there is no difference. All right. And then, so I'm going to be doing a separate video to talk about how I analyze my data. I use graph path prism. You can use that to make graph, you know, run your statistical analysis, like, you know, one-way ANOVA, two-way ANOVA. You can use it to run t-test, heat map, regression analysis, you know, correlation, and, you know, any kind of analysis that you know, bar chart, you know, pie chart, and any kind of analysis that you want to do. Once you've had all of those results, the next thing now in your discussion, that is going to be a story. Your discussion is going to be what will help the reader to understand, putting all the results together, how your introduction and the results and what you have in the literature, they all match together. So you're going to try to tell a story in your discussion to say, hey, we started up looking at this role of this and this, and then you can even state up front, you know, this is what we found. You know, we carried out this experiment and we found out this, and then you now begin to, you know, build the reader's mind again through literature and how it fits into a result. We found that when you have this treatment and increase this, other people also found similar thing in their experiment. That way you're comparing your result to previous experiments. Even though it's different, what you have seen and what other people have seen, there are different things. Then you can begin to say what could be the reason for the difference. Maybe differences in experimental design, even though it's the same treatment, you know, a lot of factors that can play in. So being able to explain all of those factors that could be contributing factor to, you know, the differences, you know, then you can also state that, you know, it's all suggestion, you know, with our results suggest this, our results suggest this, as the case may be. Depends on how many confirmatory analysis that you do. Once you finish all of your discussion, you know, your result and your introduction, bringing some things in your introduction to kind of, you know, justify your result. You can't just say something increased. You know, you have to kind of give a rationale why you think it increased. And then when you look back to literature, then you can see how to relate all of the information together. And then the next thing will now be to think about what are the limitations of your work. Every work, any kind of research, no matter how sophisticated the research is, there is no research that is 100%. There will always be limitations in every research. So you can say up front, oh, these are the limitations in this research, you know, we couldn't measure this, you know, we did this, you know, we couldn't measure this. Those ones are limitations that could be factors as well to consider when interpreting your result. That is why people always replicate experiments, you know, especially experiments that have to be involved in giving recommendations. They always do a lot of confirmatory experiments. And then one of the other things you can also put in your discussion is a future direction. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are the one to do it. If you're a master's student, if you are giving future direction, this will really inform someone that read your thesis. The person can say, oh, this person could not do this, so why don't I start from there, to really at least you have those insight already as to what a person thought they could have done to kind of justify some few things. So when you're able to do that, what happens is that you get more insight into what other people could have done. So it's very important to also put future directions in your project. At least it shows the reader that you've acknowledged your weaknesses and some limitations in your work, and you also know the things you could have done, but maybe because of time, or there was no resources at that particular point in time, you couldn't do those things. And then when you finish your thesis, either depends on if you're able to write your manuscript and submit the manuscript for publication before you submit your thesis, or when you submit your thesis, you now begin to develop that thesis into manuscript, because manuscript is a little bit now different from your thesis, because you have to see how it fits into the journal, how the story relates and all that. So there might be some things you will trim off from your main thesis when writing the manuscript, and they're just solidifying some of the things and information that is there. So that is all I have for now, and then I hope that you have a nice journey preparing to write your thesis. It's gonna be tasking sometimes, but just give yourself some time to prepare. Just prepare, and then be working on it. Don't wait till the dying minute. Just start working on it on time. You're able to. The early stage will be really very challenging, but once you get into the rhythm of writing the thesis, it really becomes interesting and really amazing. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any other questions specifically relating to thesis writing, the different kinds of thesis, you can put a comment in the comment section, and then I will try to respond to any of the questions that you have. So if you like this video, don't forget to like this video and also share with your friends, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that whenever new videos are released, you'll be the first person to get notified of my videos. So once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video.